Just let those words sink in for a moment. I sold my husband's memory. That's a quote from a woman who lost absolutely everything. And it's about so much more than just money, isn't it? It's about losing trust, losing hope, losing a connection to someone you loved. So how did she get to this point? Let's unpack.
In this explainer, we're going to walk through the anatomy of a really devastating investment scam. But we're not going to do it with spreadsheets and abstract figures. We're going to do it through the story of one woman. It's a powerful story about how hope itself can be turned into a weapon, and how a single broken promise can unravel an entire life.
You see, to really understand how a scam like this works, you have to first understand the hope that fuels it. For the person at the center of our story, this wasn't just some casual investment. It was a desperate grab for a little bit of security from a woman who was already living right on the edge. That hope, it was her lifeline, but it was also her biggest vulnerability.
So let me introduce you to Yasmin. She's 50 years old, a widow, and her whole world is her 3 teenage kids. She works these grueling nights at a sewing factory, all to try and build a future that her husband is no longer there to help with. It's that mix of deep, deep love for her children and incredible financial pressure that creates this perfect storm of vulnerability.
And right into this life, filled with sacrifice and constant worry, an opportunity shows up. But here's the thing. It doesn't come from some slick salesman in a suit. No, it comes from someone she knows, someone right there in her own community. And that is exactly what makes it so incredibly dangerous.
And this is the exact moment the trap is sprung. The pitch comes from a younger woman from her street named Humaira. And you've got to pay attention to the language here. She starts with Kala, which is this affectionate, respectful term, kind of like auntie. It immediately creates a feeling of family, of trust. She uses words like safe and I promise, but the real hook, the part that seals the deal, it's not about getting rich. It's imagine what that could do for your kids. A direct hit on Yasmin's greatest hope.
Okay, so look at the numbers they presented. They're designed to be completely irresistible, right? Getting 300 pounds every single month. For her, that's life-changing. And then the promise of a 12,000-pound lump sum after a year, that's a future she could never even dream of. Now, to any financial expert, these kinds of returns are a giant, flashing red flag. But for Yasmin, they just looked like a lifeline.
But here's the catch. Yasmin doesn't have 3,000 pounds just sitting in a bank account. To get the money, she has to sell the very last, most precious thing she has left of her late husband. The gold bangles he gave her on their wedding day. So you see, this isn't just an investment of money. It's an investment of her memories, her past, a piece of her soul.
3,000 pounds. That was the price of her husband's memory, the down payment on a dream for her children. It was a number that represented the total sum of her trust, all of it, placed in one single promise.
And for a little while, it actually felt like her prayers had been answered. The first few payments came through right on time. It was this huge relief, a little taste of that security she'd been fighting for. But that fragile hope, it was about to be completely shattered.
This timeline, man, this is classic scam 101. For 3 months, everything works like a dream. See, what these schemes do is they use the money from new investors to pay the early ones. It creates this illusion that everything is legit, and that builds incredible trust. But then, by month 4, the excuses start. Bank delays. And by month 5, just silence. The whole thing had collapsed.
And the real impact, it isn't always about the big numbers on a bank statement. It's felt in the smallest, most heartbreaking details. Little joys, like a piece of chocolate for her kids, those are the first things to disappear. This one question from her child just shows you the immediate, devastating reality of their new life.
The final confrontation is just awful. You have a desperate Yasmin showing up at Humaira's door, not even asking for profits anymore, just answers. And all she gets are these empty excuses about bank problems. And in that one moment, every last shred of hope she had just vanishes, replaced by the cold, hard fact that everything is gone.
Losing the 3,000 pounds was just the beginning. The real cost of this betrayal, it was like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples just spread out and wrecked every single part of Yasmin's life.
Let's just break down the total cost here, because it's staggering. Financially, okay, her savings and that priceless heirloom were gone. But in her family, her son's dream of going to university was crushed. Another child dropped out of school. Resentment started to creep in. In her community, the shame she felt made her pull away from everyone.
And psychologically, the weight of the guilt, the broken trust, it led to a deep depression. This is the real, devastating aftermath of a scam.
Of course, a story like this doesn't stay quiet. It became a cautionary tale whispered around the neighborhood. And the reactions people had, well, they were a painful mix of a little sympathy, a lot of misunderstanding, and some really cruel judgment.
And listen to this quote. It's so telling, isn't it? It's a complete misreading of what happened. Some people in her community didn't see a desperate mother trying to give her kids a better life. No, they saw a greedy woman who got what was coming to her. It's just classic victim blaming, and it completely lets the actual predator off the hook.
This right here, it just puts the whole sick injustice in the spotlight. On one side, you have Yasmin, just drowning in this ocean of shame and guilt, feeling like she failed her kids. And on the other side, the alleged mastermind of the whole scheme, a woman named Ghazala Din. To her, Yasmin was just another name on a list, just another pawn in a cold, heartless game, a game with no remorse and, for a very long time, zero consequences.
So we're left with this question. The easy answer, the one that lets us all feel comfortable, is to say, greed blinds people. But I think this story forces us to ask a much harder question. What if the real reason people fall for these scams isn't a desire for more, but a desperate, all-consuming need to simply have enough?